Welcome back. Some Church of England school pupils are being taught that they benefit from white privilege. Teaching guidance issued by the diocese, which oversees 87 schools, states that pupils should learn that white privilege means that they are the dominant representation in all media. With me in the studio is the director of New Culture Forum, Peter Whittle. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Vanessa.
And joining us down the line is Nels Abbey, broadcaster and the author of Think Like a White Man. Hi, Nels. Good to see you on the programme. Maybe I'll start with you. Do you think it's important, Nels, that pupils should be taught about white privilege? And if you do, maybe you'll tell me what white privilege is, just in case people don't know.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely essential that young people in our society have an understanding, a grounding of our society as it actually is. So a critical part of understanding our society is understanding the concept of white privilege. And white privilege simply means that privilege simply means a lack of obstacles. And white privilege in this context simply means that you don't face obstacles by virtue of the fact that you are white. It doesn't mean that life won't be simple, or life won't be hard, or you won't face obstacles, but it just means that those obstacles won't be related to your ethnic or racial background.
And what seems quite interesting is that you can really sum that up in a sentence or less. So do you think it's really essential to teach it, or can't they just be told once, or, to bear in mind that if you're white, you won't have the same obstacles as somebody who's black. You might have others, but you won't have the same. End of. Is there any more to teach? Do you need lesson after lesson on that same theme?
I think it's easy to define oxygen or so, but it takes a few lessons to properly make sure somebody understands the impact and the role of oxygen within our society. It's the same thing about white privilege too, that I can make it roll off the tongue, but at the same time too, you have to go into a bit more depth of understanding, so particularly for younger people, so they know what they're seeing. And I think the objective here for all of us, particularly as far as the Church of England, who the Church of England, I must point out, really does owe black people both presently and historically, but I think the key thing here is that it's important for us as a society that we are teaching our young people and making our society as compassionate and as cutting edge as possible. And I think in teaching this concept, as well as teaching other things such as financial responsibility.
Nels, I've got to stop you before you go off into the realms of financial responsibility, which is a totally different programme. We're not talking about it, and we're very low on time. So let me talk to Peter Whittle about this. Nels says it makes perfect sense. Do explain to young people what white privilege is and that they may or may not be benefiting from it.
But that's not really the point, and my friend here is being disingenuous. White privilege is the idea that by virtue of being white, you have innate privilege. So if you take this country at the moment, the most underprivileged people in terms of education, and we're talking about schools, are indeed white working class boys. They are the ones that do the worst at school, and they're the ones who are least likely to go to university. It's based, or it comes out of, something called critical race theory, which is being pushed in our schools now. There's a very good report just come out today by Don't Divide Us, all about this. It's not just the Church of England. And it basically says there is inherent white privilege, Britain is structurally racist, its history is racist, and just one story, long story of oppression, all of which I reject. This should not be taught as though it is somehow fact, and that is what is happening increasingly in our schools.
Well, let's just check with Nels. I'm imagining Nels thinks that is fact. Do you, Nels?
Of course, it's inherently fact, absolutely. It's inherently fact. It's demonstrable. It's demonstrably fact. I don't think that that's no credible body of organisation or so would point out that racism or white privilege or the lack of obstacles as far as being white is concerned, related to race of white people, is not a fact. Now, with that said, the idea that white boys, or so white working class boys, and I find it interesting that we have racialized the concept of class. That there is an issue there, and it's something that I personally take personal interest in and try and actually work with young people, young white boys, young black boys or so, to try and make sure that their lives are improved. It's not something I just do. I won't just say something like white working class boys are underprivileged and then go back to bed. No, I get out of my bed and try and help them, and try and help the local ones, particularly around me or so, to become better and understanding people, more competitive.
Let me ask Peter, do you think it does any harm to teach children about white privilege?
It absolutely does.
Why?
Because if you tell people, if you tell white kids, oh, you are inherently privileged, you're inherently racist, actually, and if you say you're not racist, that's also proof that you actually are, right, because you have unconscious bias. All of these things are terrible and confusing for young people. What I would say as well, Vanessa, is that, this is all being put forward as though it's some kind of very nice, sort of full of good intentions. It really is not. We end up in a situation like we've had reported this weekend, where basically black kids in a school in London are being given extra literacy classes and white kids are not allowed to attend them. Now, that is, well, I think that's racist. And also, for that matter, I think it might even actually be illegal.
All
but that's
right,
the
we'll
logical
stop it there.
conclusion.
Nels, Peter, thank you very much.